Hello and welcome back to the She Gallery Show. Thank you for being with us. We are here with a co-curator, co-host, co-producer, co-everything. What's up, Trickster?
Hey, how you doing? How you doing, Dulce?
Good.
Welcome, viewers. Thanks for joining us today.
And you are with us live. That means that you can join the conversation at any time during the segment and call us at that phone number at 312-738-1060. We have a lot to talk about today. Trickster, many of you may remember that Trickster led this show back in 2018, and he took you all through many segments of how graffiti has impacted all of society. Why don't you talk to us a little bit more about what you've done here with us before, here with our show, and take us through this journey from your take on the Chicago style here in the development of Chicago style in the graffiti movement.
Okay. Well, it's been a very interesting journey for those who have been tuning in as we have been delivering this content. As we began, we initially wanted to cover all of the essential aspects of the development of the movement and activity here in Chicago as it relates to graffiti and hip-hop movement. And we have been successfully completing a series of interviews and meeting with artists to showcase this. Our first or episode was called The Phenomenon, which was kind of like the culminating aspect of the whole entire series. We did a 10-part series which emphasized some of the key components of the graffiti and the graffiti movement. Some of them unbeknownst to a lot of artists or patrons or what have you, but hopefully they did get some education on some of the developing components of the graffiti movement. So we did 10 episodes, and here I'll take a moment to peruse through them so that you can have we'll recap through them so that you can get up to speed on them. We're going to go to the web so we can take a quick view on the internet. Give us a moment.
You can visit our website at sharinghisenergygallery.net.
All right. Yes, right. Sharinghisenergygallery.net. She Gallery has been instrumental throughout the years here in the Chicago area, addressing key factors that are affecting all of us in our society and our communities. And I'm glad to be a part of this ongoing development. And we look forward to doing more things. So getting back to what we did for that 5th season, we came up with the 10-part series called The Phenomenon of Graffiti. And here, as you see, that first episode was here, and we talked about, in general, the whole phenomenon. When we say a phenomenon, we say that this whole entire hip-hop movement was a resurfacing. It was a resurgence of a youth-derived culture that started out in different areas across the world and succinctly became synonymous and through the development in New York. And it was synonymous with the entire movement across the nation. It happened with simultaneity, some at the same time, like from the early 70s up into the early 90s. It was pretty much the heyday and advent of graffiti. So we say a phenomenon because it happened randomly, spontaneously. It was all just an activity of the youth-derived culture that came to become a global phenomenon. And so our second season, we talked about the art and craft, which details some of the key aspects of the actual art and craft and how it's done and how to recognize some of the key elements of the art. This third episode was about galleries and collectors, who was popular, what kind of artists were being collected, what type of galleries were being formed. And that was a very interesting episode, as we've seen that Banksy and a lot of the key artists are starting to come into their fruition and get recognition for their contributions to the movement. The fourth episode was focused on education and vocation, the movement as a whole, and how a lot of artists started out learning the craft and taking it to other extremes, into other fields, and to create a employment and other things for income generating activities. which leads into our next thing as our next episode, which was about entrepreneurship. And we mentioned specifically some of the key developments of that point, like Mark Echo and his involvement with entrepreneurship and the growing fads and things that were prominent at the time. And then the fifth or the sixth episode, sociological and historical, we will be reviewing that as well. That episode had some situations where it couldn't be broadcast, but we will revisit that at a later date and have that available for viewing. Technology was the seventh episode or so, and we focused on all of the parallels that graffiti has in technology, and also some of the technology that has grown since we initiated this craft and it started flourishing. So we reviewed many things like in the mainstream world and also personalized development on the artistic or the artist level. The eighth episode was about science, all the aspects that relate to graffiti as a science, as it relates to mathematics, geometry, and other types of sciences. That has parallels that correlate into what can become skill sets or transferable skills into these fields in science and other technical endeavors. The ninth episode was about symbolics, all the symbolic relations that graffiti and graffiti art and graffiti forms have and share with mainstream society on a large scale. The last episode, we talked about the future of the art and where the art was going and where the genre as itself collectively as a movement is going and how the artists are contributing to that and how society is also fostering the development and growth. We've seen so many new things occur and it's still growing. So I'm glad to be a part of S.H.E Gallery's introduction and ongoing documentation of this cultural phenomenon. I look forward to us growing more.
Thank you.
All right, let's go back to the main screen.
Yeah, you can.
There we go.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Welcome back, viewers.
Yeah, so Trickster, you talk so much about the power of the youth. So you were a child yourself, right?
Yes.
Yeah, when you started developing all of this and forming these styles and abstracting the typography and working with these other kids, neighborhood kids as well. At what point did you realize that this was something bigger than just drawing on the streets? Or like, what was it like for you to develop these art forms and can you talk to us about your personal relationships with the writers that we're presenting?
Sure.
And give us some background on Family Resemblance and the theory.
Perfect. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
The title of our exhibition is Family Resemblance.
Family Resemblance.
Why Family Resemblance?
Okay, well, let's start off before we go into the initial beginnings with the youth. The show, which will be coming up next year in March, around early March or what have you. But
you guys didn't know that.
Yep. We're still working on getting the finals on that. But essentially, the show, we gave the title Family Resemblance. We gave that because the topic, Family Resemblance is the title, and the motto or the title of the show is called the Evolution, the Evolution of Chicago Graffiti. And we chose that because we wanted to have reference to our founding. As Chicago is known as a city of first, we're known as the innovator in almost every field across the gambit, and we're known as a hub for the development of future technologies. And we have this reference ingrained in us as a people, as a location, as a practice, and we emphasize these things. We can see it symbolically emulated in what we do as artists, because most artists know that graffiti may have started on the coast, like on the East Coast, and then you have the West Coast, and we're the Midwest, so we're the hub. So all things from the coast come to us, and we want to emphasize that point as Chicago being the city of first in that respect. But as far as graffiti, we have our own unique style. We have elements that are based in the movement, and we have our own individualized contributions to the movement. Since graffiti's formation and development, Chicago hasn't produced a numerous amount of publications or documentative references. So that's why we're undertaking this endeavor, so that we do have references and history and things that should be recognized and should be preserved. So we're looking forward to doing that. Family Resemblance was chosen as a collective principle in the movement because graffiti is a lot about crews, is a lot about individuality as well, but it is about crews. The families of crews, and me myself coming from the West Side and one of the largest crews that ever was formed here. We had at one point almost 30 members.
What crew is that?
ABC.
ABC.
Yes, so we had
Artistic Bombing Crew.
Yeah, it's very intricate. I mean, I have a distinct family. We have people from the North Side, South Side, West Side, etc. So we had people from all sides of the town. And as it relates to the term and what we want to represent, family resemblance is a term that was initiated from one of the 20th century's most famous philosopher, actually. Just like you look at like some of the old philosophers, you hear Plato and Archimedes and other, different types of philosophers or what have you. But the 20th century philosopher, his name was Ludwig Wittgenstein, and he initiated a discussion on art and how anything that we can create shares family resemblance, and it's hard to dictate what art is. As we, as graffiti artists, went through that, a lot of artists may remember that we went through that, being told that graffiti wasn't an art form. It didn't have all of the true elements of a true art form, etc. But it did, and it does, and we know that now. And it's getting its recognition because there has been no new movements in the artistic world since graffiti. There's been a few minor developments, but they are all relative to what has already existed. Graffiti takes all of the elements of all existing art forms that have ever existed and incorporates them into a dynamic whole. A lot of people may not be aware of that, but that is a key component that you should take away from this, is that it is the most dynamic. It encompasses and duplicates and can render any other type of art form with the medium that we use. And we take all of those other art forms and bring them back into the forefront because we make them live again and we practice them live again. So that's a key point that we want to mention. Now, as far as family resemblance, Wittgenstein noticed some key components about this, and he referenced this, and this has been an age-old argument since the 1900s. Hundreds and hundreds of people to this date, school teachers, this is a big thing in school. You can look up the term on Wikipedia. Here, we have it displayed here, and we're going to take a quick look at that right now.
Philosophy, structure, wisdom, method. This is the backbone. There's a lot of education involved here, isn't there?
Yep. So here, family resemblance. Let's go back for a moment. So if you look up the term, a general family resemblance, you look up the term family resemblance and art, you'll see it's been talked about for 100 years. And what it relates to is how different artists emulate each other. And how does that happen when people from disparate areas create art that looks alike? So big thing about graffiti right now is style and how people emulate each other. So we have families of style. We talked about ABC being our initial crew, and everybody in ABC, we had a similar philosophy on things we did. We had a similar look. People were chosen for the way their art looked to be a part of the crew, and we produced productions that had a standard where you had to have all the elements of basic art theory, meaning background, midground, foreground. You had to have your letters had to have style, had to have balance, in order to be appropriate for what we did. So that's where the nature of family resemblance came from. And if you look it up, you can find tons of things about it. And it relates to how similar crews. So we have tons of crews here in Chicago, and everybody has their own, each crew has their own kind of style or what have you. So that's the nature of what family resemblance is. And we're going to talk about the evolution of the forms. If you look at this heading here, the title of our logo for the show, it starts out with the most basic forms of letters, and then it goes on to how the decorative elements were added, Old English, cursive, and on into what we do. Being that we're in an information age, we have an information art form. Just another thing, key point is I always like to emphasize that this is an information-based art form. It is based on the word, the letter, and as the focal point. And being that we are in an information age and a knowledge economy, any age that we're in reflects the art that we're in. Thus, we have an information art form. And another key point we talked about, she mentioned some of the artists. Now, this is a all-star roster, some of the most original and founding members of graffiti here in Chicago. It's going to be an all-star lineup, and I'm looking forward to delivering a great show. Let's go back for a minute. Thanks for joining us. You're tuning live into the Sharing His Energy Gallery show, She Gallery show here at Can TV 21. We're live. You can catch us online also. And we're looking forward to this show. Let's go back and get back here.
To you.
You can. There we go. So that's a brief summation of the show, the content of Family Resemblance and what we've been doing and why the show was being put together. And we talked about the youth, which is important. So we want this next generation of artists and youth to have all of these references so that they can carry the history and take it further. Because you don't know where you're going unless you know where you've been.
There's a lot of power in youth. And again, we go back to structure and to education. There's a lot of education, as you learned from the overview that TRIXTER just shared with us on science and all these other key components that maybe we didn't think about before. So why don't you talk to us about your development? So you started as a kid and you started developing all of these structures. And now what are you working towards? How are you staying within, how are you utilizing hip hop as a method to educate?
Excuse me.
And staying true to your art form?
Well, essentially, currently I'm doing workshops. I do a graffiti tour. I have an online class, and I work with a few online services that deliver instruction. So I'm doing that personally. Outside of that, my personal endeavors, I tend to frequent events, public happenings, and engage, youth in that way. With the schools, I'm working to develop a formal curriculum. It's near completion now. That has transferable skills that can lead to academic attainment and employment skills that can lead to gainful employment. So I've been working in that respect. And as a youth coming up, a lot of these things weren't available to me when I started. I started really getting into street dancing and stuff in 77 through 79. And at that time, there wasn't a lot of art programs around. I primarily was doing stuff on my own or with my dance crew. We were making clothing and doing like cardboard and things of that nature. So it was kind of challenging at that time. There wasn't a lot of art programs at the time. So it was kind of rough coming up. But as I grew up and I started to meet other artists, I traveled around to the north side, to the south side, and I met a lot of other artists, and it broadened my horizon. And it was great. It was a great time, great thing for me. And you get to meet a diversity of people. I couldn't say if it wasn't for graph and hip hop, I wouldn't have blossomed as much and went to be exposed to so many people and so many cultures.
And so much respect. Mm-hmm. One thing that I noticed is in talking with all of the writers that we have on this roster and all of the writers that I know here in Chicago, everybody has so much respect for you. That's actually how we connected with TRIXTER. Was through another organization, another crew that started a subway crew, which is kind of amazing as well as T6. So in making sure that we protect, it seems that when we're dealing with these old school writers, there's this sense of protection. Mm-hmm. We want to protect that history, mm-hmm. and that is really important. And it's something that you're really taking to the next level. Something like Kane, who also developed this curriculum, or one of your guests that you had on, mm-hmm. Amina, mm-hmm. to make sure that we protect this culture and how hip hop actually helps, with education, with letter structuring, with making sure that, you're always challenging and exercising your mind. This weekend we were over at Sundays on State Street, and I was with the children, and we were doing some stencil spray paint art.
Yes, I was working. I wish I could have been. I'll be at the next one.
For sure.
Yeah, that was great. I saw it.
Thank you. And it was a great opportunity for me to teach them about stencil art and about graffiti and the difference between spray paint art and graffiti art, because I think that's also something very important, mm-hmm. that everybody thinks that you pick up spray can and that you're automatically doing graffiti, and that's not
That's
the
not
case.
true. Well, yeah, graffiti is about letters. Graffiti is about letter
Oh,
forms.
and mural tours.
Right.
I took a mural tour and they were like doing the same thing. I was like, no.
Yeah, graffiti is about letters and letter forms. Again, that's a huge point. Maybe we got a couple more to go to elaborate. Okay,
We got time.
so graffiti is about letters and letter forms.
Stop.
The depictive elements in a mural are standard. So we take, again, graffiti is the most dynamic. It has taken all other art forms and incorporates. It uses all the principles of the visual arts in its structure and the formatting. We utilize everything that's relative to traditional art forms, but we emphasize the letter and the letter form because all elements of visual art are included and integrated into creating a letter form. So with that knowledge, one can learn many things because most things that artists depict in an artistic composition, we also do those in the letter and also in the structure of the mural, the full composition that we're creating as well. So that's one element that people should know that's what true graffiti is. Now the difference between street art and graffiti is more along the lines of like conceptual art. If people are familiar with what conceptual art is, all the different genres, you have all these different genres of art. A lot of them deal with mechanical application, how the medium, how the material is painted, how the technique that you're using. Like pointillism is like a bunch of dots that they just keep applying like this, like that, to get the look of they want. So what we do is we take all those principles and use the aerosol medium to emulate them, and this is how we keep them alive in what we do with the arts. But street art is more of a conceptual thing because a lot of it is illustrated works that are exaggerated. And when we say conceptual, we mean it's conceptual. You may not. The difference between photorealism, where somebody just gets a photorealistic drawing and they paint it exactly as it is. Now, when you start elaborating and elongating, like you do caricature faces, when you have the big head, the small body. Now, these are all animated elements that are akin to, their own respective approaches to creating art. So with graffiti, again, it's about the letter form and how we structure it, and so that's the variance between street art and graffiti. If there's no letter forms in there, then it's not. Then it is street art. It's not the core of graffiti.
Okay, good to know. Why don't you talk to us about your development with your letters? The word trickster. Like you chose a word that had like how many letters is in there?
Yeah, that's 7.
Had 7 letters.
Well, actually, here.
With Drastic, we had that conversation.
Yeah, I saw that. That was a good one.
Yeah.
He nailed it. He mentioned exactly the same way we take
Everybody
it.
goes to the thesaurus. I thought that was so cool because I remember when I was a kid and I used to get in trouble and like instead of like whatever, when I would get grounded, I would study the dictionary. It was an obsession with
crazy.
writing, just with writing all together. And you really, really, really go into, and I really wish you guys, I really recommend that you guys go and check out all of the Can TV season 5. I listened to it all last week and I'm like writing stuff down and I'm taking down notes. The letter S, the symbology with that, referencing
The
back
sigil.
to
The sigil. Everyone knows the sigil. The sigil is that S thing that everyone sees. We used to draw that back when I was in like 3rd grade or 4th grade. So it's been around for 50, 60, 70 years. It's a global thing. It is a universal symbol. It's called the sigil, and that the Superman S kind of look thing, and but it's not an S like Superman. It's not an S, but it is a universal symbol, and nobody knows how it originated, where it came, but everybody's familiar with it and have seen it. It is a universal. It's been around for 60, 70 years. But I wanted to touch on that real quick. Was that she mentioned earlier about names, and we choose names, and I have a 7-letter name. My name was chosen because of the nature of what I was doing as a b-boy and a dancer. All breakdancing and b-boy moves, even outside of breakdancing and b-boy, bike tricks, skateboard, everything was called tricks. Like you do skateboard tricks, you do bike tricks, you do this type of tricks, you do karate martial arts tricks. You do martial arts, it was called tricking. So initially I started doing these things in the 70s, like free running. Before I saw free running and parkour, I was doing these things in the late 70s, running, doing the parkour, free running, jumping off things, swinging. We used to do all these things because I was into the martial arts. But what I want to emphasize here is the concept of naming and the naming convention. I have 7 letters in my name, And my name was chosen because of b-boying, and those moves were called tricks. And we used to stir the audience, stir the crowd with what we do. You ever seen any of the b-boys? You know how fabulous they stir, spin, and do magical things. So I chose the name Tricks and Stir. So Trickster, and then I shortened it and sped it up and tried to put it almost into one word. Because if you look at my name, it's TRIXTER. So it's not no S's in there because the nature of how I structured it and how my whole thing about structuring words and symbols. So that's how I got that name. But what I want to emphasize as far as the naming convention is in the movement, you're supposed to choose a name. Names are supposed to be infinite. I mean, but we have a lot of repetitive names. So just like if you look in the normal society, you have a lot of Johns, you have, last names, first and last names, that we repeat them over and over and over and over and over because no one can think of a name. So think about that. You get all the strange names you think of some graffiti art. What is his name? His name is Bread One, or this name is Oil Can Two. And like, why would he say his name is Oil Can? Or, something like, because it's hard to think of a name. It is hard to think of a name. Think about it. How many Johns and Michaels? So all these kids, they want an identity. We want to feel renewed. So these kids, they want an identity. They want to have a nom de plume or a pen name, which we as chose as writers, because
we don't get to pick our own names at birth.
Right. And then, like, for example, Samuel Clemens or Mark Twain, he wrote Mark Twain. He had a pen name, an artist or a writer name. So we're along those lines, the pen names and things of that nature. So all the names, people are fighting over names. People are fighting over duplicating names because you may have multiple cities, writers are choosing the same name because it's hard to put together a name, a title. So when you get a title, it's very important. So in these kids, it's like the spirit. You want to be emphasized. If it doesn't have a name, it doesn't exist. So that's why the naming convention and things of that nature. And then another take on that in the large scale on the mainstream society is that every word, as far as domain names, like you get a domain name on the internet, every word in the dictionary is taken. Every word. There's no more words. There's no more names. You understand? So it's very serious.
And aren't we losing languages too?
Yeah. So it gets deep. Now that's what I want to emphasize.
He's always like, do you know we're losing languages?
Because of the urgency. That's what I want to. That's what I want to mention today. The urgency.
Let's not lose any more languages.
Yeah, we lose. A language dies every day because someone hasn't written it down, and the persons are getting old who speak it, and nobody has taken the time to write the language down.
Lazy.
How this relates to graffiti is. One essence is there's been 250 written styles of lettering that have been created since writing began.
That's a lot.
We're down to 50. 200 have died. Dead language. Nobody's writing it. Nobody's speaking it.
That's not cool.
So now we're down to 50. Right? And then people wonder, what is graffiti? Why are people writing? The pen is being taken out of the classroom. This helps you with neurosynaptic connections. Typing is good. I mean, it's an upgrade to what we're doing. But all these things, writing is a very important thing. It's connected to your being. Mm-hmm. So we're getting low on time here, but that was the key point we want to emphasize.
Really quick, like in one of your segments, I think it's on science, and you mentioned on writing, and we go back to writing really fast, computer programming, and you go to this ball and stick. The ball and the stick form.
Oh, right.
The ball and stick form.
Yeah.
And like since that last segment 3 years ago, I've taken the IT courses, and you've taken the IT courses, and I noticed and I've learned that in computer programming, that's all that we have. We have this and this.
0,
and
1.
That's
it controls everything. So language is like a machine. So tune into some of those episodes to get up to speed. And again, we're looking forward to having a great Family Resemblance show with all the Chicago artists. Thanks for having She Gallery for putting this together, and we look forward to having y'all attend.
Yeah, you too. And I just really, really fast, I know we didn't really get to go into depth about the roster, but I just really wanted to pinpoint that everybody that we've talked to has always considered Trickster and Pengo especially as like one of the, or if not like the earliest pioneers that helped develop this style here in Chicago. So we are very honored to have this roster with us, and we look forward to meeting with the rest of the guys from this roster that you have not met yet. And you can visit the website and check out the interviews with B-Boy B, Drastic, East, And slang might be ready soon. And then we also had an interview with the co-curators with yourself and me and
Yeah.
Tango.
Mm-hmm.
So, if there's anything else that you want to leave the audience with?
Yeah, it's going to be a great show. Graffiti is a very unique art form. I mean, there's a lot of things we could talk about it. I will delve more as we go along, and there's a sense of urgency. There's an urgency. Emphasize all the urgency. Everything I'm talking about, sharing about is, although some people is high end, is technical, scientific, academic. That's because of the nature of urgency that we share. We mentioned again, we're down to 50 styles of writing. 25 of those are from India, so those are Indian-based writing. So now we're down to Arabic, Chinese, and English. And English is leading the way. English has about 135 other cultural languages that it takes into account with those symbols. But we'll talk more about that at the show. Thanks for joining us. We're live at CAN TV. We'll look forward to seeing you at the next session. Everyone, all viewers, have a pleasant rest of your day. We'll look forward to seeing you on the S.H.E Gallery show soon.
Thank you.